Və cənablar, tədbirimiz qaldığı yerdən davam edir. İkinci hissəyə keçid alırıq. Mən bir neçə saniyədə bəzi iştirakçılarımıza tanımaq niyyətindəyəm. Çünki onlar qulaqçıq əldə edirlər. Çünki bir daha vurğulayım, bilməyənlərə də agah olsun ki, ikinci panelimiz ingilis dilində davam edəcək. Məhz o səbəbdən tərcümə məqsədi ilə hər bir iştirakçıya yetəri qədər özdə yetər sayda mövcuddur. Tərcümə avadanlığı, qulaqçıqlar təqdim oluna bilər. İstəyənlər zala daxil olan kimi sağda bizim əməkdaşlara yaxınlaşa bilərdilər. Əgər hal-hazırda tədbir iştirakçılarından zalda olmayanları varsa, ortaq dostlarımız varsa, hətta onlara belə xəbər etməyimiz xahiş olunur. Biz isə davam edək və başlamadan öncə xüsusilə bir qeydi bildirmək niyyətindəyik. Masaların üzərində biz bu kitabı görürük. Sənaye Təhlükəsizliyi Zirvəsi 2024 haqqındadır və təəssüf hissi ilə bildirmək niyyətindəyik ki, ötən il məhz bizlə birlikdə olan SƏTƏM mütəxəssisləri Mirzə Məmmədov və Rəşad Haqverdiyev haqqın rəhmətinə qovuşduqları üçün bugün bizlə birlikdə iştirak etmirlər. Amma sevindirici bir məqam var ki, fərq etməz ilin hansı dönəmində olsun, məhz xüsusilə Azərbaycanda SƏTƏM sahəsində, ümumiyyətlə bu sahədə o qədər dəyərli insanlar var ki, onlar unudulmur və unudulmayacaq da və layihə təşəbbüskarlarına məhz belə diqqətə, incə məqamlara nəzər yetirdiyinə görə təşəkkürümüzü bildiririk. Əziz xanımlar və cənablar, keçid alaq ikinci hissəyə və dönüm nöqtəsi konsept mesajlı Azərbaycan Respublikasının Fövqəladə Hallar Nazirliyinin, SOCAR-ın və Azərbaycan Sənaye Təhlükəsizliyi Assosiasiyasının birgə təşkilatçılığı, BIP-nin və SOCAR Dasrim şirkətinin baş sponsorluğu ilə ölkəmizdə 3-cü dəfə keçirilən Sənaye Təhlükəsizliyi Zirvəsində sizlə birlikdə görüşürük. Tədbirimiz Betonist PDB şirkətinin Gold sponsorluğu, Avansiz qrupun, Bahar Energy Operating Company-nin, həmçinin East Servisin, Safe Qasın, My Liftin, Safe Life-ın, Marsolun, Agropatın və Kran qrupun, eyni zamanda onu da qeyd edək ki, İstehsalat Mərkəzi MMC-nin tərəfdaşlığı ilə keçirilməkdədir. Zirvəmizin media tərəfdaşı isə NS Studiodur. Minnətdarıq dəstəkçilərə, çünki bizim bu zirvəyə xüsusi bir zaman kəsiyində hazırlıq prosesimiz olur. Hər bir məqamın da ideal keçməsi üçün əlbəttə dəstək öz zərurətini qorumaqdadır. İndi isə keçid alaq podkast tipli Safe Talks panelimizə və bir daha bildirmək istəyirəm ki, bu panelimiz ingiliscə olacaq deyə qulaqçıq əldə edə bilərsiniz və panelə başlamaq üçün moderatorumuz olan Azərbaycan Qida və İçki Sənayeçiləri Assosiasiyasının İdarə Heyətinin sədri cənab Emin Dostiyarini dəvət etmək istərdik. Emin müəllim moderatorumuz olaraq buyursun və spikerlərimizi elə Emin müəllim özü dəvət edəcək. İnanırıq ki, bu panelimizdə yetəri qədər maraqlı, aktiv, dinamik və yadda qalan olacaq. Uğurlar arzu edirik alqışlarına.
Teşekkür ederim, sağ olun. Good afternoon. The group of people who made it for afternoon, nice to see you all. It's a great pleasure for me to be here on the second panel as a moderator. Without further ado, I would like to invite the panelists, Ms. Irada Ahmedli, Ian Collins, and Max Kaiser. Welcome, Rada Hanım. It's a great pleasure to see you again, and we have guests. Welcome, Max and Ian. It's really nice to see you both with us today. Before we start, I would kindly like to allow the team, the panelists, to quickly introduce themselves, and I can actually start from myself. Emin Dostiari, I'm the chairman of Azerbaijan Food and Beverage Association. At the same time, since 2008, I am the safety director of the Coca-Cola company in Eurasia and Middle East, where we have 27 countries, 70 Coca-Cola production operations, and over 1,000 distribution centers that I work with a great team to lead this process. And with that, I want to hand over to Irada Hanım for her introduction.
Hello everyone, my name is Irada Ahmadli. I'm an industrial hygienist. Presently I work for BP, actually for over 20 years I work for BP, and I'm an industrial hygiene hub lead for BP AGT region. And in my experience with AI for the last year, I will give some information about the tool that I use in BP. Okay, that's it.
Great. Hamia Salam. My name is Ian Collins. It's a real pleasure for me to be here. Thank you for having me in your wonderful country. My background, I am the founder and managing director of a couple of companies that wear a few different hats. One of them is called How to Hop, and based out of Dubai. And we help organizations understand and integrate human and organizational concepts and principles. Another company that I run out of Singapore is a company called Wellbeing Daily, where we take well-being from a human resources strategy and actually have it be a driver of operational excellence in organizations. And then I partner with a company called Digital Energy. We've developed some very cool AI technology, particularly around safety observations we call Nexa HSC. So I'll be talking about that today. Again, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. Hamia Salam. First of all, thanks a lot for welcoming us. I've seldom seen or going to a conference with that hospitality. So for ISA, thanks a lot. Great organization. A short background about myself. I'm the co-founder of Acto. What we do is we build with AI highly customized sustainability and HSE e-learnings for large enterprises from like biggest companies like GE, Essity, Japan Tobacco, many other companies. Before that, I worked for two decacorns in the as well IT, safety, environment. And so I'm really looking forward to the conversation, bringing a little bit of like the intersection with humans and AI in the loop in the context of safety.
Thank you. So, professionals, ladies and gentlemen, occupational health and safety was and is and of course will be in the future an important element of business to continue, of the social aspect and human aspect of entire life being and of existence, of course. And particularly in the business, occupational health and safety, if we look at the last 20 years, we have been hearing a lot of developments happening. It could be related to the technology after the industrial revolutions, and of course it goes on, and we already have lost the count. It's 3, 4.0, and the fifth one is upcoming. And there are always the learnings and opportunities in the area of occupational health and safety improvement. However, now one of the new terminologies that we hear and the new things that we are experiencing is the AI. So artificial intelligence versus the regular, normal intelligence, how to make sure that our workplaces are safe. I'm looking forward that we can tap onto that in terms of an experience from big multinational companies as Coca-Cola, British Petroleum, and as well as with the AI technologies and human organizational performance-wise. And in the next, let's say, 85 minutes, we'll be trying to have a light on those areas. So, ladies first, I would say, yes. Irada, as BP's industry hygiene hub lead, you have driven global AI-based safety initiatives. So from the experience, what are the benefits of AI usage in HSE management systems, and can it improve risk assessment process and prevent potential incidents and accidents in a real situation as a hands-on person? That your experience on that, please.
Okay, thank you for this is just for ladies first. Okay, in the first panel there was a lot of discussion about pros and cons of artificial intelligence, as you said, versus human intelligence, but we are not about talking the battles. I would just like to start with, in general, what AI is and how it appeared on the scene. So it all started at about 1950s when there was several scientists who developed and considered how a machine can mimic human intelligence, and one of the famous is Alan Turing, which probably is known worldwide by developing him Enigma machine, which helped to defeat the fascism over the World War II. So since that time, there was a lot of developments and technologies, and nowadays we can say that AI is it's a science which can really indeed help people to complete a number of goals. So it's strong in many things, including the data processing. Probably these are the the strongest thing of AI. And data processing, it can process a vast amount of data, structured and unstructured, and it's good on learning from that, from that data. And in general, we can say that in terms, if we're talking about the HSE, it's like a good HSE manager which can learn from the accidents, and inspections. And many companies, and we heard already on the first panel, great examples how it is implemented even in Azerbaijan. That was a surprise for me, and I'm really pleased that we have these developments, we have these things in place. And I would like to bring one example that we use in BP, and I particularly closely involved with that. Over the last year, I'm dealing with the implementation of digital tool for the chemical risk management. And chemical risk management is one of the key things. I would say that chemical management is very important in every person's life, both at work and at home and everywhere. So chemical risk management tool, we call it CRM. Actually, it's not a BP tool. It's a tool developed by Walter Kluwer company, which is also very well known, I believe, by many companies, even here in Azerbaijan, recognized by the electronic control of work tool. So it's the same developer, enabling company. And the tool, it's a digital tool, and it's contain AI element. For chemical management, the most important is that to understand the impact, and actually in any risk assessment and in health risk assessment in particular, understand the hazard, and the hazard level can be identified by multiplying, let's say, impact on probability. So what this tool does, it's take the data on a hazard, it's take from the, again, we are going back to the quality. So it's taken data from the SDS, safety data sheets, and extract the codified hazard statement, which we can say that informed by the product hazard classification. And inherent hazard is defining the initial severity or initial impact level. So we have AI here to help us in extracting all information, which is precise, which allows consistency and allows more robust risk assessment process in general. And it's also reduced the manual work. So if we ask the audience or anyone, what are the most precious things that we have in our life, I think that majority will agree that the most precious thing that we have is time. Time we cannot gain, we cannot steal it from life, unfortunately. But what AI can help us here is to save our time, to save this resource for us. And here, again, by reducing the manual work, we can, with the use of AI, we can get this. But then, after that, we need to understand the probability. And here, again, AI help us by analyzing a number of variables, which is actually informed for us by the international organizations, including ILO Chemical Toolkit, which was used as a basis for that. So a number of varieties, like use of these chemicals, like use scenario, volatility, dustiness, frequency, amount of that. again, it all depends on our input. The better quality input we upload into the system, the better output we will get. And after that, it's analyzed and give us the probability based on the information. And after that, of course, it will give us the worst. It calculates, it allows scoring of the worst credible risk, which at the end, ultimately, why we need it all. So what are the role of every risk assessment, of every management system, is to properly define resources and see where we need to focus. So if we understand what are the highest risk, where the highest risk, what are the most risky areas, most risky activities and chemicals, we can properly split our resources, focus on the most critical activities, and of course, we can also reduce the number of incidents and accidents. So in that case, it is a good example where we use our digital tools and AI, and we can, it is indeed it's a helper for the people, for HSE management. It gives us both efficiency and improve our safety.
Really fascinating to hear that the technology that you are using AI in chemical management. I remember in the industry, like we have got sometimes over 100 different chemicals on site and different sizes. And then it takes really a lot of time to figure out what is the emergency response plan. I mean, at the first place, what is the worst case scenario? What can happen? Now, you can put 10, 15 safety specialists around, and then we can always predict in which condition it is stored, where it is stored, how far to the people, occupied area, and then what is the emergency response plan for that? I mean, in terms of environmental protection and the safety protection, and what are the training needs, and the most important, whenever we bring any chemical on site, besides the MSDS, there's a lot of work needs to be done around the risk assessment, and what are the threshold limits by the local regulations. I mean,
absolutely, yeah, and that's a good point that you mentioned about this also. This tool is not, it's employed not just in one country, and many people know that BP is an international organization and has operations in many countries, and various operations. It's not just producing oil and gas, it's also refinery, it retails, and some others. And these tools is a standardized tool, which also allows company to have standardized, unique approach in all their operations, and of course, better controls and more efficient way of managing chemical risk in particular.
Another one experience that we had, one of the European companies, that the system was in a way connected to AI and supply chain. So instead of, let's say, storing thousands of liters of H2SO4, let's say, I mean, the system dosing, automated system already informs the supplier when it is predicted for them to bring the next bulk of a shipment to prevent large storage or stock keeping on site. Similar like Amazon is doing with these fridges and all these technologies. So as it goes forward, there are really a lot of opportunities with AI application. But of course, the important part here is that how do we ensure that the AI services serve for the purpose? It does not generate another risk for us. Thank you, Irada. That is really quite exciting part. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, there is a human intelligence and there is artificial intelligence, and the biggest orchestration is required from the HSE people or the leadership of the companies to ensure that the harmonization is not disturbed. With that, I have a connecting question to Ian. Ian, with over 2 decades of operational experience and your leadership in human and organizational performance, which is a very important topic, and I really love that. You have focused on error reduction and trust building, which is very important in the safety context. Please give us a brief info about the HOP first, the human and organizational performance, as not everybody might be familiar with it yet. And also, my main question after your background introduction will be, from HOP perspective, how do you maintain human trust and accountability when AI systems start making predictive safety decisions?
Great. Thank you. Well, again, really appreciate the opportunity to come and share some perspectives. And just in hearing the question, maybe just a bit of background. And I started my career in oil and gas and was drilling for oil when I saw someone get killed. And that had a really big impact over the trajectory of my career. So I went off and thought I could make a bigger difference in the world of health and safety and went off and did all my qualifications, became a health and safety advisor offshore. And it was at the time, this is about 20 years ago, when there was a big focus on behavioral-based safety. And if we had this belief and this opinion that if we could change people's behavior, we would reduce incidents. And that had limited success in my view. We were still having very similar looking events, and we were losing people. People felt blamed, they felt punished. And it wasn't until I discovered this science we call HOP, we now call HOP. It stands for Human and Organizational Performance. HOP was developed in the aftermath of some very significant nuclear events, which I'm sure you've all heard of, Chernobyl, but prior to that was 3 Mile Island in the United States in 1979. And what happened at 3 Mile Island was an operator or a group of operators were just following the procedure. They followed their training, yet 2 of the cooling towers ended up melting down. And major significant event, almost Chernobyl level event. Thankfully, they were able to salvage the situation, but there was a lot of backlash to the actions of those operators that particular day. They were named, they were blamed, they were punished, they were forced to go before the country and apologize for what was determined to be their mistake. Thankfully, there was a very smart person around at the time, a guy called Dr. James Reason. We saw earlier the Swiss cheese model. That's Dr. Reason's model when he was trying to help explain to the regulator in the UK how Piper Alpha oil platform burnt to the ground and that we had these layers of protection. So Dr. Reason was around at the time and he asked a question. He said, well, if we'd put someone else in their position that day who had the same background, the same training, the same experience, would they have taken the same action? And if your answer to that is yes, you don't have a problem with those individuals. You've got a problem somewhere in your system that is having that action make sense to those people. If you just fix people or you fix the individual, you might fix the problem for a little while, but if you fix the system, you fix it for good. And that's, in an essence, what human and organizational performance is all about. Understanding how we as individuals interact and are influenced by these elements of our systems that surround us, other people, other programs, other processes, the work environment we operate in, the culture of the organization, and the equipment that we use. And if we've got weaknesses or gaps in any of those elements, it's going to impact our performance. We shift the perspective from looking at individuals and trying to fix and coach and mentor them to looking at where the problems are in our system, because most of our problems are systemic in nature. Most people don't go to work to try and hurt themselves. They don't go to work to try and damage equipment. They don't go to work to try and harm the environment. Most people go in to try and do a pretty good, a decent job every day, yet people do get hurt. And what HOP really helps us understand is what made sense to that person at the time that had that action make sense to them. Otherwise, if they knew whatever action they were going to take was going to result in a bad outcome, they wouldn't take that action. So HOP really helps us understand what was going on for that person at that time. If we can fix the system, then the next person who comes along isn't faced with those same challenges and going to make the same mistakes. So that, in a nutshell, is what HOP is about. It's about understanding how and why people make mistakes. AI now helps us really understand that system even more effectively, because it really helps us understand some of those signals that tell us someone is more vulnerable to making a mistake. When it comes to each of us are susceptible. We're human beings. We're vulnerable to making an error. And we can either prevent errors, we can reduce the probability that someone's going to make an error, or we can mitigate the consequences of errors when they do occur. AI really helps us to determine what some of those error-likely conditions are. The thing about when it comes to trust and accountability in rolling out and adopting AI, there needs to be transparency. There needs to be an involvement with the frontline workers, the people who are actually out there doing the work on a day-to-day basis, to understand what the AI is capturing. If we don't involve them, then we're going to be met with some resistance around that. In terms of agency, we need to understand, what is the intent? What is the expectations when it comes to collecting the data? If AI is used as a surveillance tool, then trust and accountability is going to be heavily impacted and impeded. So we need to understand what's the agency when it comes to using the AI? And lastly, is there a state of psychological safety? We heard about it earlier this morning. If psychological safety doesn't exist within the organization, then people's willingness to really adopt the tools and the processes are going to be heavily impacted. So we need to understand what's the state of psychological safety. Do people feel safe? Do they feel like the AI is going to be used to monitor them, as opposed to helping them really reduce errors, increase operational performance, operational excellence, improve quality? Or is it going to be used against them and used for blame and punishment if and when something goes wrong? When it comes to HOP, there's some principles that really guide the thinking. Firstly, that error is normal. Secondly, that blame fixes nothing. Our systems are what drive our behavior. Our response matters, and learning is essential. AI can enhance all of these elements. It can really help us apply the HOP concepts even more effectively, but it needs to be done with transparency. I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you.
Thank you. It's really important with HOP. When we read a lot of articles and talk to the professionals, when I remember one thing about the HOP system, it says that blame fixes nothing, and I was talking earlier, I have got two Gen Zs at home, and when I also try to manage this two young people, I try to apply HOP mindset as well. The key element that you take the person out of the context who has done the error. Like Americans say, when you point at somebody, the other three fingers return back to you. So important here to understand what are the systems gaps that we need to improve and ensure that we can fully implement the HOP and then the right mindset. I remember one of the examples where in a particular risk incident assessment we had, where in one operation, 16 people cut their fingers in the same point, because of only one reason. The first one was afraid to report it because the culture of the organization was blaming the people. Like, don't you see where you are touching? Are you not educated well? And pressure. So over and over, because that error was not fixed, it took 16 people to injure their fingers by the time somebody came back and said that, well, there is an error, so we have to fix. And in that context, the AI technologies, as you mentioned, is now quite widely used. I mean, we have our operations where we are using AI technology. We have put AI inside the cameras of the factory, and you can identify if people walk too closer to the forklift that creates unsafe condition, and then it gives you a heat map. So in that context, what would be the response of the employees? Like, are we designing AI technologies to monitor the people or to learn from the environment? That is very critical. And as we go forward to the countries where the personal data is more protected, like in the Western Hemisphere, it is quite challenging to implement those type of technologies. One of them is also the telematics, the ADAS systems. If you install it in the cars, it gives you a lot of information and feedback, but it continuously records as it was discussed in the panel first, that it continuously records the behavior of the driver. And will this data be used against the driver, or it will be used to improve the process? Very critical moment, AI and HOP, two interesting points and meeting each other, and I appreciate Ian for a quite valuable insight. With that, my friend Max, so your work focuses on scaling of AI solutions. Now, we are talking about AI here and there and globally while addressing cultural and linguistic diversity. So with that in mind, how can generative AI help us solve the localization challenge, like specifically regarding the instant translation, cultural nuances, adaptation of global workplaces in the safety context?
Yes, so I think it's a great question, and I think the first question we should ask ourselves is, why would we care about it? Like, why do we want to personalize? Why do we want to translate? And like when I went this morning into the hotel and had breakfast, I saw many people coming from different countries, from Africa, from India, that probably all work here in oil operations and stuff like that. These are people with different backgrounds, coming from a different culture, having different languages. Probably English is not their native language. Azari is not their native language. And so when they come on site and they work in your operations, for sure they don't want to break anything, and they want as well like operate in a safe way. And at the same time, they don't have time. That's the classical issue for everyone. They don't have the time. And so I think where AI can be a huge benefiter for those cases is to help you make training meaningful, because the reality of today's large organizations is usually have kind of like a central HSE function that defines kind of like the guidelines, the principles that you have, and then you have local managers, and they basically are then their kind of like exercise is to make those procedures, make them adaptable to the people. What they often do is they just hand out, for instance, because they also don't have time, to just hand out standing the procedures, so the SOPs, or a PowerPoint presentation. And here comes really the thing about what is interesting for AI. If you, for instance, give to an operator something like a 50-page report that they have to read, with a lot of stuff in it that is not relevant for the task they perform, they will probably just go over it and don't read it and just sign that they read it. And then for your reports and for your compliance, you have fixed the topic because you enabled them, but the actual reality, the risk is not taken away. And so what I think where AI can help, for instance, for people with lower literacy, build engaging videos in the local language translated. Hyper-personalize. So when I'm taking, for instance, working in heights, the topic, how do I enable a supervisor versus an operator? The operator really gets the task versus the supervisor gets more like trained about how to communicate with the people about the key risks. And then also kind of like as well hyper-personalization to the procedures you have, but also to the plant-based or like geographic risks. And I think this is something what we are, for instance, trying to tackle with ACTO. So we are trying basically to make those trainings super engaging and super relevant to the people, and in all different languages. So a lot of them comes as well, and this is a great benefit of AI. Before, I don't know, like every one of us probably used once Google Translator or stuff like that, and the classical thing is you translate, and it translates the text word by word. And the problem with that is that especially like for many languages, the context is not correct. Yeah. So you have probably for one word in one language, you have based on the context in another language. In high contextual, so to say, for instance, like India is a high contextual culture, you have one word with many different meanings based on the context. So you need to translate right based on the context. And this is where AI can help, because it can read the entire context it gets the data feed in based on the operations, and then it will make the right translation. And I think these are some interesting points.
Absolutely. It just reminds me, in some of our association members, their organizations, we have the big food companies that we have been discussing a couple of months ago. I mean, how much procedures and, we hear from the media sometimes somebody falls from height and there's a fire and all this, which creates a red flag for us, and to go back to our members and check where you are, guys. So we see sometimes like they have got so many requirements. It starts with electrical safety, work at height, confined space, hot work. I mean, it's countless. And then every single people exposed to all this risk are supposed to be aware of it. And then in the multilingual organizations where we have a lot of people still are perfectly speaking Russian, but very, very little Azerbaijani. And those people are the citizens of the country. And in the context of how to understand the details of the risks and the controls and the procedures and the SOPs, it is very critical that a technology used that will give them the feedback from the system in the multiple language. And at the same time, people do not have to read everything. So let's say if there is a hot work happening at elevated platform on somewhere, and then the expectation is from them to read the whole book. That in most of the cases we see that people just tend to not to do that. It's just for the signature. When we understand it, when the accidents happen, and then next you go for the investigation, it turns out that a lot of people, because of the size of the requirements, because it's not clear to them, or it's too technical for them, is really doesn't serve for the purpose that we hope that AI is going to bring solution, and that's what your organization is also doing, which is very valuable. With that, I want to make the second round to Irada. So Irada, with the hands-on role in implementing AI, as you mentioned within British Petroleum's HSE systems, so you have seen both benefits and the challenges. Of course, the coin has two sides always. So based on that, what are the potential implications caused by the utilizing AI? If you can give an example, and can you advise practical solutions to overcome those challenges?
Yeah, thank you for this question. And in the first panel, there was also similar discussion about the challenges, potential challenges. And lots of these have been already discussed. So I took a note just to refer to them maybe somehow. So the one challenge that was mentioned about the quality, data quality and errors with the use of AI, and that is an issue. So the data quality is very important here because the output highly depends on the input. And it's not only about the volumes of the quality, but the quality of the data, but the quality of the data that we put in. Of course, the AI can help a lot with the data management. Like I'm an industrial hygienist. For industrial hygiene field, occupational exposure assessments plays a crucial role. So we are doing the monitoring, we are taking samples, we are analyzing them, comparing to the standards, then producing reports. So it requires lots of time, lots of resources, and it may give error as well. So AI is a great help here, and also it changes, usually in occupational exposure, it's a reactive approach. So when you identify some problems, you start to investigate it. So AI helps to change it to the proactive approach, and also it helps to make this data more quality. There is a definition which is called in IT language wrangling of the data, which means that cleaning the data. So AI is good at the cleaning the data. So it can reduce ignore some redundant data, duplication, inconsistent, and the good things with that it can which is called amputation. So it can amputate all irrelevant data, but at the same time it can imputate. So it can add in, so fill the patterns and fill the gaps. So because AI can identify the patterns. But again, it all depends on what data you put there, so to ensure that it works without errors. For example, if you give too much data and give the names, so there is a possibility, so if you do personal samplings and you add the names of the people, and there is a possibility that AI is doing the wrong conclusion that person whose name starting with A is exposed to the high concentration of something. So they can be coincidence, and AI may wrongly analyze it. So this is very important not on the amount of the data that you put. So it's not about that you put everything there and AI immediately, like a wizard, will give you the proper results. You need to select what data, what features you use in there, so what you put in. So this is one of the issues to correct this AI erroring and the data quality. Another issue that was discussed is the possibility that AI will replace human at some time and we will lose our job. So there is honestly, while I was preparing to the conference, my main consultant was AI. So I started to inquire that if there's such a chance, and AI honestly told me there is a bias. There is a bias from people to AI. Yes. I can tell there is some truth in that because it's about how people treat it. In fact, what AI is, it is our additional pair of eyes and ears, because most of the AI sensors that we use are the cameras or some detectors which can grasp some noises and analyzing data. So it is really good in that and help. But what AI doesn't have, it doesn't have another sensors that human being has. Mm-hmm. It doesn't, until now, no one could develop any equipment that could imitate the nose. Mimic. Or the tongue for understanding the taste, or touch, which is very impossible, what we can feel by touching. So AI cannot fully replace human intelligence because human brain is working based on all of these sensors. So we have some limitation. Maybe in the future there will be such developments and innovations that will help in that. But at the moment we do not have, so we can just use AI as helper for us. So there are some other challenges I will mention about this integration into existing system and readiness of people to adapt to the new system. This is a huge challenge, which is a blocker for implementing these AI. So people are not ready to adapt to the new system. Old style. I used to be old style at some period, old school, I would say, not old style, sorry, old school person. But nowadays, we need to understand that we cannot just put it aside. We need to go in time and start to use that. So maybe some ethical considerations, legal considerations, there shall be, of course, there shall be standards normalized to the use of AI. AI cannot be just, AI cannot work without control of human supervision, so it will remain. And human supervision is essential here. Cybersecurity can be a problem. Yes, it's a challenge because a vast amount of information that we put there can be easily attacked by cyber hackers and be the subject of the breach. And these may be the main challenges that I can count. And the training, yes, about the solution? The training is very important. Back to my CRM program that we have implemented, there was a big bunch of training that we also offered to our workers to help them to adapt to a new system, and training, upskilling, reskilling of people will fill the gap between people and machines and make them the AI, the true helper to us, rather than enemy.
Yeah, absolutely. AI is also a little bit of demonized for let's say, by some professionals. Well, as we said earlier, the coin has two sides. I mean, if we put it out of the control, of course, it can do really a lot of stuff. And you probably have heard from the experts, what kind of things it can do. I mean, it can generate its own language. It can generate its own language, and then it can communicate in a language that is not known for the professionals, even for AI. But that's a very, very deep part of it. in terms of when we come back to the original challenges that we can experience the mid-level or businesses, of course, the hallucination is there. Even as an individual user, the AI systems, that they have hallucinations. I mean, we experience it. They have the bias, as mentioned earlier, insistence. It insists with the opinion that it has. Even the ChatGPT and Copilot and the others do that. The learning is that the data you put in, you should not expect more than the quality of the data in terms of getting an answer. So the data in will be analyzed and will be responded, and the very critical part here is the right prompting. If we do not provide the required prompt in an accurate, in an understandable way, in another way, we also need to understand how the algorithms of the AI, the applications work. So in order to be able to get the maximum out of it, we need to push in the detailed data, clear data, and of course, very detailed, understandable prompt, so that we can get the result out of it. I think it is the solutions that, Irada, you also mentioned, the training. Please, Max, go for it.
Just one point I think was quite interesting is we had in the earlier panel today as well the discussion about will take AI over human jobs or not. There were several people that said no, and I said I partly disagree, and I will explain why. Because I think in the long term, and this is the big problem at the moment, this is I think also the CEO of former CEO and founder of Microsoft, Bill Gates, he said we overestimate the power in the short term and we underestimate the power of AI in the long term.
Yeah.
And I think this exactly happened. So people jumped on the use cases, got super excited, said it will change for me now everything, and then they realized, oh, but then the output is wrong. And so I think when you look about the AI context, there are kind of two fields. There is generative AI and agentic AI. I make a very simple example for both. Generative AI is you have a Tesla that is self-driving. It's a super complex task where basically you can't predict if someone is sitting the road. These problems, or for instance, handcraft worker working in the oil operation, automating these problems, they need so much insights and data, and they will not go away on the long term because the information, this is the problem, the data is still in most people's head. Yeah. On the other hand side, operating accounting task of sorting some data, the examples as well that you made, they are already automated right now, and this is happening. And I think so. This is as well the shift. So it depends a little bit, and the key factor is to enable the people in the organizations to change from I do the tasks to I enable my AI to do the task and I oversee for the agentic AI part. Sorry, this was just what I wanted to add.
You.
Absolutely. As we go forward, there'll probably be a shift of the roles and let's say tasks. I was reading one article where it was mentioning that after World War II and industrial, let's say, revolution 2.0 or 3.0, everybody was thinking that as we go forward, there will be a lot of loss of the workplaces. When the chainsaw came, a lot of people with the manual saw was thinking my job is done. But however, it brings new roles, and it brings new orchestration opportunities to the world. And we are, I think, this generation, we are in the middle of hearing from everybody what's going to happen. But I think that over the time, we will understand really more what kind of shifts that we expect in the area of that we operate and how it will impact the safety. Thank you, Irada. I have a very, I would say, connecting perspective question to Ian. So, Ian, what I understand from the work you do and also from your earlier feedback, so your organization globally, let's say, advises balancing innovation versus the safety culture, because HOP also will still work with human. Even though AI is there, it will be used as a tool and to put on our toolbox. So considering that experience, in your view, what is the tipping point where AI becomes economically viable for smaller operations, especially for small and medium enterprises, without compromising safety culture?
Yeah, great question. And just to build on what Max and Irada were saying, because it's a brilliant conversation, At this point in time, there still needs to be human in the loop design. AI is very good at detecting weak signals. It's good at detecting drift. It's good at detecting where we might have error traps in our written documents, our processes and procedures. What it's not very good at is making sense of that. And we still need to ensure that as humans, we're the ones making sense of the data, of the information. We want AI to support, not replace decision making. And when it comes to the smaller organizations, there's some very large organizations represented here in this room, and but the majority of organizations out there, in fact, statistically, there are more fatalities that happen in organizations of 100 or fewer people. And those are the organizations that can really benefit from the adoption or even quicker adoption of artificial intelligence. And let me explain why. In the smaller organizations, people are under strain. There's the frontline workers are trying to do more and more things. The supervisor is overloaded. They don't necessarily have the capacity that we do in some of the larger organizations. And we miss, therefore, a lot of the signals. We make more errors, particularly big catastrophic ones, that are going to cost a lot of money. So for me, the tipping point comes when the cost of missed signals is greater than the cost of AI adoption. We have this, and I don't know whether it's just me or it's a pervasive sort of perspective right now where AI can be costly. And if we start going about putting cameras everywhere and implementing software that can help us detect things, then yes, it can become costly. But there are a lot of things that we can implement that don't necessarily have to be overly costly. When we started building Nexa HSE, the whole design of the software is to be able to take a snapshot and very quickly for the AI to tell you what's going on in this observation. It's not designed to replace our interpretation of something. If I were to take a photo of everyone sitting here right now, the AI would tell us and give us an idea of what's happening in this photo. It's then up to me or up to a supervisor to make the final interpretation. When we built this, we didn't build it that it became overly costly. There are a lot of things that organizations can be doing, particularly smaller organizations, to really go about this AI adoption. The question really is, are they digitally ready? Have we done a digital hygiene and really set the foundation to adopt new practices, new ways of looking at things? Is there a culture of psychological safety? Because if there isn't, AI is just going to be seen as surveillance, and that's going to have a detrimental effect. And lastly, is there capacity from a well-being perspective? Why I like to converge these worlds of human and organizational performance, artificial intelligence, and well-being, because the AI helps us with data. It gives us the data. Human and organizational performance gives us a lens through which to interpret that data, and well-being really helps us understand, do we have capacity to actually take action on what the data is telling us? So for me, they work hand in hand. Again, just going back to for the smaller organizations, we talked about the tipping point. For me, the tipping point comes when if we keep missing the signals that the data could tell us, where the likelihood is we're going to have an error, where we're going to have to go back and repeat something. As soon as that becomes more costly than the actual adoption of artificial intelligence, that for me is the tipping point.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not more like what I understand the catch is. It is not about if it is a small business. It is more how much it costs them and how much they save on it. So it is going to be a demand base rather than being a large organization. And of course, in a larger organization, there are more opportunities. But when it is for small companies, the tipping point for them exactly will be when it becomes economically viable for them. So it makes it feasibility, that makes it feasible for them to move to AI, and don't resist anymore, rather than, it's a very valuable point.
If I could just sort of, for me, what I've seen, it's more about culture than budget.
Exactly.
And are they culturally ready? And one thing, last thing I'll sort of say on that topic, if we start with humans, the technology will follow. But if we start with technology, humans are going to fall behind. And so we need to look at the culture of the organization and start there, as opposed to just implementing what's available if the culture is not ready.
I appreciate. I think it's quite insightful.
One just short comment on this, and this is like for SMEs, I think the key thing is like focus on platforms, not on single use case solutions. Because like when you're a large enterprise, like I don't know, 60, 100,000 people, it's economically viable to have for dedicated use cases, dedicated solutions. Whereas probably, I don't know, we can do a lot of like front-end automations already, focus on one model like Gemini or ChatGPT or whatsoever what you use, and then have like 2 or 3 like high return use cases in your operations where you use it. I think that's also a point that the people were jumping a lot of small use cases at the same time, and then the cost explode.
I appreciate. I have a question to you, Max, but before that, I would like to turn to the audience and mention that we are not far from the end of the panel, but however, you have got QR codes on your tables. If you have questions, please use those QR codes to submit your questions to the panelists, and we'll make sure that we handle them. So just for your information. And with that, Max, as the CEO of Acto, you have led the shift from traditional compliance training to AI-powered platforms, which is a significant difference in the way how people are receiving the trainings, and it's a real behavior change. So from that experience, historically, HSE trainings has been plagued by compliance fatigue. Let's put it this way: how can AI help you shift our KPIs from completion rates to actual competency retention, and focus on more towards the, let's say, leading indicators, using these key performance indicators as leading indicators rather than lagging indicators?
Yeah, so I think it's a really good point. I think where AI, I think first of all, by the way, it's not an AI topic, but it's an incentivization topic. Because I make a stupid example, but if I, like, what do I want to incentivize with the training? It's the same like in safety. If you say, for instance, you want to incentivize 0 hazards, yeah, then probably the people stop reporting stuff, yeah. And so the thing kind of like goes into training. So are we incentivizing completion, or for instance, are we doing much more interactive or open-ended questions in training? And like to answer your question regarding the KPIs, I think like in the past, what was a lot focused, like when it comes to training specifically, it was like how many people completed the stuff. And now I think with AI, where we can move to is on the one hand side, like you can make open-ended or like open text questions, and I can analyze it, and it can give you like more an option to give more instant feedback. And so moving to more like not only completion, but also what is the level, kind of like in depth of the feedback that was provided. And on the other hand, I think the big advantage with AI is as well that you can, if you connect, for instance, training much more with operations, you can also see a context of, like, for instance, people that got trained and then incidents and actually connected to each other. I think this is the second big shift if we, as stated, build the right kind of like data lakes, if that's answering your question.
I think the world actually in education side needs a serious shift. When we look back 100 years, how the education used to happen is like a blackboard and chalk, now I was privileged that I had an opportunity to go to the Stanford University and the University of York and Lehigh and Texas A&M, where when I was going to the university, it was a big dream. The university in America, university in UK is the best. But I tell you what, I mean, it does not make a big difference between what we have experienced here and in those countries. Because in the last 100 years, the way of teaching people didn't change. You still sit in the classroom. Now maybe it's a digital board, but it's still the same process. So when we think about this, the trainings of augmented reality or learning from a distance or using the AI technologies to teach you, to answer you, to be like a teacher next to you, I think, I believe that AI somehow is going to contribute for a new age of training, new age of education that is actually taking outside the boundaries of those four walls that has in the last at least over 100 years is the same approach and methodology while the world is changing big time. It's kind of like we are supposed to sit in a Ferrari and drive in my village where you have got the slabs of stones. So we have one app to show. I think the team is ready. They said that they can do it. I know Ian wants to show one application. We tried to find a way how we can do that. Even though we talk about an AI, we had to go with the conventional way. So we'll have to use the phone screen and closer to the camera so that we can place it on the wall. Ian wants to show one application that he was earlier mentioning that if I take a photo of the audience and put it in the AI app, it will tell us what kind of hazards are out there. So it's kind of the demonstration of that. So he's taking... Sizdən xahiş eləsəm, ekranını yaxından göstərə bilərsinizmi? Lap mümkündürsə. İstəyirsiniz yaxınlaşdırın siz, o əl əsmədən siz uzaqda. Aha.
Let me just maybe explain what's going on here. So this is Nexa HSC, our safety observation AI-enabled software here. And what the AI does is that we can take a photo and it quickly gives us an analysis of what it sees in that particular photo. Again, this then, we can take the signals from that, and it's here, it's determined that the image shows a large conference meeting room setup with no apparent confined spaces or immediate hazards. It's given a very good synopsis of what it sees in the observation. Again, we still want to keep the human in the loop by design, so we then want to be able to interpret the meaning. What this enables us to do is to really look at more effectively error-likely situations out there in our facilities. It gives people more gamification when it comes to being involved in observations and being involved in solutions to some of the things that they find out there in their work environments, looking at both physical hazards but also performance hazards as well. And I just wanted to sort of give you an example of what AI is enabling us to do in terms of understanding conditions more effectively and giving us more data to then be able to make better decisions from. So appreciate the opportunity just to share that application that we've developed.
Thank you, Ian. Teşekkür ederiz. Thank you. And yes, I mean, we see that it's really not far away from our pockets, so you can just download an app, and there are, of course, you already have several apps in your let's say, business phones and the corporate phones that can be turned into, let's say, environment noise assessment, the light measurement, the room hazards, emergency evacuation, and all this, and can give you really insightful information. With that, I would like to kindly open the floor to the audience. If we have any questions to our panelists, that we would be more than happy to take that. And if the team also can help me, how we will, if Ali is around, to tell us how we can take the questions. It doesn't work over there. Okay, maybe we can take just mikrofon var mı? Yoldaşlar sual vermək üçün mikrofonunuzu rica edirik. Neçənci masadır sizdə? 7? 7-ci masa. Yox, gözüm görür hələ. Hardadır suallar?
Qeyd elədi.
Yoldaşlar onu istifadə edib sualı veriblər. Oradan da oxumaq olur. Yox, bizdə hələ... Please.
Hi, my name is Rufat Garadagi. I represent SOCAR here, right? I have actually two questions to you guys. The first one is to you, Ian, right? It's about hope. So it's a very interesting concept that I heard today. You also mentioned the previous concept of safety culture. And this morning, one of the presenters here spoke about the safety culture ladder, etc. So my question is, what's the relationship between this safety culture concept and HOP concept, right? Is it, do they kind of work together, right? Complement each other, or HOP is the next stage of the, if I can say so, managing health and safety at work, right? That's my first question. And the second question is kind of general question. What's your impression of, so you've been here for the whole day, you're listening to the discussions, to the presentations. What's your impression of the, where are we with AE in Azerbaijan now? So I just want to hear from you. Thank you.
Wonderful, yeah. Really appreciate your questions. And in terms of the safety culture and HOP, they complement one another. And we'll often look at safety culture and say, okay, we want a just culture or we want a no-blame culture. But if we don't have processes that can help us to enable that, that's where there's a discrepancy between desired state and where we're at. HOP becomes an enabler, and it does so by firstly grounding itself in those 5 principles. You can tell everything you need to know about an organization by how it responds to failure. You can tell everything about the culture by how it responds to failure, because if someone is immediately blamed, punished, whatever written warnings, fired, without following a proper process that can really help us determine, firstly, was something an error or was it a violation? And secondly, were there systemic drivers that the organization can actually do something about? If we don't have those sort of processes in place, we can want the best culture in the world, but we're never going to get there. So for me, HOP becomes the enabler of that. I can't remember the ultimate state of culture that was mentioned this morning, but yeah, that becomes our enabler. So very complementary in that sense. I hope that answered your question.
And the second question was that what is your feeling about the safety in Azerbaijan based on the first panel and
yeah, I did a calculation the other day. I've taken 67 flights this year, and so I've been to a lot of different countries. I was in Peru 2 weeks ago. I was in the Philippines last week. Go back to Singapore later this week, and then I'm in Australia. I'm all over the place, and in terms of the level of conversation that I've witnessed just here today, you're up there, and there are some countries where you're having a similar level conversation, but you're certainly in top sort of 10% that I've witnessed so far. So I keep doing what you're doing. For me, you're leading the way in terms of the conversation and making sure that there is readiness there to fully realize the value that AI can bring to organizations, to safety, to the world in general. That's my perspective.
Thank you, Ian, and thanking the gentleman from State Oil Company for the question. Any other questions? We can actually go. We see a hand over there. If you could please help to get the microphone there. Microphone. Okay, we got it.
Hello, dear guests and the participants of the panel. So my question is Ms. Irada. I'm Mohammad Asadli from the Academy of the Ministry of Emergency Situations. So I have also two questions about the chemical issues you remained before. So the first question, how are you decontaminate your sensors after emergency revealed about the chemicals, the chemical warfare, the chemical toxics, industrial toxics? And the second question, as you remained, the error is error, but the error added inside the AI data is still error, and AI will operate this error as the true one. So what steps are you taking to overcome these obstacles? How are you doing, which steps are you taking to delete these errors, or what are you doing after the error and not true information added into your AI systems? Thank you.
Yeah, you want to take the chemical one?
Yeah, I believe the question is to me. The first half of the question was a bit blurred, but I think that I've got you. So how to prevent this error in chemical management? Again, there is lots of... Yeah, you want to correct me? Yeah, you can repeat the question.
Yes, please. I'm repeating my questions.
Yes.
The first one, my boss questions are for you, Ms. Irada. The first one, I repeat, how you decontaminate, cleaning your sensors after chemical emergency. Like your response that you're using sensors on AI to get data about the chemicals on work site, but if the emergency will happen, have you any plans how to clean the sensors, how to overcome this contaminated sensors problem? The second question, how you overcome the error added inside your AI data systems? What are you doing to prevent it? Because error is still error, as you
You
mentioned.
can take the second?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I've got the question. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, first of all, for raising the question. I'm happy that there is some interest in chemical management issues. On your first question, how to clean sensors after the errors, we do not use AI at sensors level. I'm sure there is a lot of experience in various companies, but in particular in my practice, we do not use AI at sensors level, we use it at the data management system. So it's a chemical risk management system, which is digital platform for creating risk assessment and managing the various chemicals that come on site and assessing the risk and assigning the controls. So I'm not good at answering your first question because we do not do it. If you talk about the sensors, in general, I'm not. I cannot give you answer for the sensors, but for the equipment that we use. So we use a lot of monitoring equipment, and of course, so if there is some contamination, so there is we are using some purging gases for cleaning this, the monitors. It's standard process, standard protocols for the usage of monitoring equipment. And for your second one, how we manage errors, I would say that we have the system, the main aim of the system is to prevent errors. So that the whole idea of having this digital risk management system for chemicals in our case. So it's first of all, it's codified. So codifying itself allows that the data is consistent and is reduced errors at the input level. So all information is taken from the hazard classification, hazard statement that is informed by the safety data sheets. And that's why to make sure that we have the proper data without erroring, we allow only GHS compliant data. So GHS are the regulation, it's a global harmonized system, which have standard protocols for the safety data sheets, which have the informed hazard statement for each chemicals. So we use this clean data from the beginning. We allow this, and there is a system, it's not we are doing manually, so there is a system working behind that is working on that. and we have also several layers of approval. So it's a scalable. The system allows to do the scalable risk assessment and focus on the challenging issues. So we have several layers of approvals. So if there is a low risk, low volume, low risk assessment, so we have it's a site level approval, self approval. But if the high risk, for example, carcinogenic or mutagenic chemicals, it will go for the health experts approval. So this is the way we are preventing erroring in the system. And I hope I answered your question.
Thank you very much for the question and the answer. Do we have any other question? Please raise your hand. Maybe we can skip. We have one person over there. We can skip the QR process. Maybe it's like more interactive. Orada bir nəfərin sualı var. Mikrofonu rica edirik.
Well, we do that maybe just to add on the question, because I think one of the biggest problems with AI is that you mentioned is like the data sanity. I think one of the interesting parts that we see sometimes with what certain industries do is because in order to have kind of like to train the AI, you need to have the relevant data sets. So if several companies of one industry get together, provide the data sets to a neutral party, then kind of like collects the data sets and pseudonymizes these, this can help as well to build out the right decisions. So there are many companies in Munich, some of them just specializing on those use cases. So in those cases where you don't have own data to build your own rack, you can sometimes build synthesized data in order to prevent that you get something from externally that is malicious, just to add on the question.
I appreciate it.
Okay, mic check. Greeting dear speakers, greeting dear auditorium. My name is Vladislav Pristinsky. I'm from SMAPE, it's a petroleum service company. So during this evening, we speak about benefits, successful cases of implementing AI. But I would like particularly address a question, particularly for Jan and Max, about current obstacles, limitations, and hardships, what you would like to do, what you would like to working on right now, and what are the current challenges you have, and you are struggling to do it, and maybe you are planning to fix it, to make it better work. Thank you.
Great.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to start. So for us, I mean, what we are doing in essence is we are building kind of like an AI agent, building your auto training. So this training process has different steps. It has a research phase, usually when you build a training. Then you kind of like define learning goals. Then you iterate and build out the videos for that. And then you have kind of like voices, and you have the translations part. And so to answer your question, the struggles, the struggle is that we have is building out meaningful data sets. That's a core challenge I think that every company has. And I'll make one concrete example. For instance, we talked a lot about localization and contextualization of, for instance, when you are building training or working at heights. Translating this training, we get often asked by our clients, like, can you translate this training into Chinese? Yeah? And they always think it's a complex task to solve. Actually, it's not, because the data set we have for Chinese translations is so big, because 1/6 of the population is more or less Chinese. Yeah? At the same time, if a client asks me, can you build this out in Finnish? For us, it's harder, and there you need more human in the loop. Why? Because I don't know the exact number, but I would say more or less they're on the planet like 5 million Finnish people, or maybe it's 8. So the data set is smaller, and therefore also it's more difficult to have the relevant context. And I think this is one of the things. The second part is when it comes, now everyone is viewing these great modules generated by Sora, so for videos. And there one of the big things is for safety is different, because the video has to be 100% correct. And so just automating it out for us doesn't work at the moment. So we have, like for the videos we generate for our clients, we still have to have this human in the loop. So these are 2 concrete examples I would like to give from our end. And yeah, handing it over to...
Yeah, a great question. The biggest thing that I've seen in terms of resistance is the fear of surveillance. And what is the data going to be used for? And if we don't involve the workers in that, what the algorithm's actually doing, there's always going to be a fear there. So one of the things that we like to say is psychological safety really becomes the currency of AI, because if that is not present, the adoption is always going to be facing an uphill challenge. The other one, from a HOP perspective, HOP is a big part of it is about understanding the work as we imagine it is done versus the work as it's actually done out there in the field. And oftentimes there's a big gap between those two things. So if an AI comes up with a solution that might not be a fit for the way work is actually done out there, it breaks trust. So that's again where we need to involve the frontline workers in actually not necessarily designing, but having a part to play in what is the AI doing. We need to have opacity there. It needs to be clear to people.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's getting interesting. Any other question from the audience, please? We have got one over here, the microphone.
Good afternoon. My name is Rovshan Guliv. I'm from BP HEC team. So there are two sets of directions when we use AI. Sometimes we use it for data analysis, but there are some options when we analyze people behavior. And in my experience, we have some proposals to use cameras and AI analytical tools to understand people behavior at the work site. So what they do right, what they do wrong, how they behave, potential hazards around them. So we didn't come up with decision on those solutions because ultimately we were thinking, okay, in the environment where we try to build the culture, when we try to build the trust with our workforce, get their feedback to us, implementing these tools may influence that relationship. So people may be stressed, feeling that they are monitored, they are being observed by someone, how that information, that analysis will be treated, etc. So my question, Ian, probably to you more from the human operation perspective, right? So what's your reflection? What's your thoughts about this? As going further, I believe at some time in the future we'll have to select in that dilemma, right? With AI, with all the digital solutions around, we won't be only trusting on people reporting. We'll need to get more information. But again, ultimately, the trust piece is kind of area of concern for us. So it'd be good to hear your reflection on that.
Yeah, it's such a pertinent and brilliant question, and one, to be honest, I don't necessarily have an answer for. It's an inquiry that we're in, and I'm sure a lot of other companies are in as well, because the reality is when we know we're being observed, it alters our behavior. If we think about the Hawthorne effect, we will alter our behavior to, if we know we're being watched right now, it's having an impact on my behavior. Now, will it get to a point where it's just accepted that at all times we're being watched? There are certain cities that we go into the world where it's almost, we've forgotten that we're constantly being monitored. Do we want to get to that point as a society? I'm not sure I necessarily want to live in that sort of society, but it's such a challenging one, and we need to be able to observe to get the data. Now, it depends what we then do with that data, and what shifted for me when I discovered human performance was understanding that behavior is not a cause, it's a consequence. And if we start to see people's behavior as a consequence of whatever's going on in the system and using the data in that sense, then it can be really beneficial. But if we're using the data to then hold someone accountable when they've done what we would consider the wrong thing, that's where trust starts to get it's a bit of a grey area. So I'm with you. I'm in the inquiry myself, and I think on a much deeper global scale, we all are in this deeper inquiry as to what role does observation and surveillance play in terms of the balance between getting data and having people not feel like they're being watched constantly. So
One thing maybe that is interesting is like I was earlier this year in April, I think on a conference in Amsterdam, and a company called Stora Enso, it's from Finland, they did exactly this use case. They had the same question, and they said that like they implemented it, but they did two things. So on the one hand side, they said the person who will see, or like the team that will get the information of the risk spotted will be super small. So basically not everyone can see it, and then the supervisors go and say, what are you doing here? And the second thing is then when they kind of like got all the information and all the risks, they went to the sites, and especially like Emin said in the beginning, like the right communication. So instead of saying, why are you doing this? They asked like, can you run us through the process? We have some ideas of things that might be wrong. And they understood that a lot of things, they were not captured in their SOPs, or like they needed to make changes in the plans. And so I'm more than happy like to give you the name of the HSE manager there, because probably it's a good exchange for the same topic.
And I know that we are very close to the end of the session. I can share one experience from the food industry, that application of AI, let's say for data collection or for learning the unsafe acts and behaviors and the culture, it is also possible to go tailor-made, not the entire, let's say, site, not the entire production operation, but could be a particular, I mean, with the oil context, I may say the chemical operation or the drilling operation, not the entire, maybe the platform. This gives an opportunity or a discussion point to the team that this is for a particular process to learn and to improve it. Since people won't be there for the whole day, they also understand that it is a periodical place where they do some work and act. And we also learn as we start to implement AI in the operations, in the business, we start learning that it is no-go for the shop floor people when it is not clear. They have an ambiguity, what it is all about. As far as we explain it to them, what are the benefits, and if they don't have a question mark and concern that, well, okay, you want to analyze this part of it, but why would you have a system to analyze the entire hotel? So then is the sense-making model. As far as we make sense and we tell them that where application of it will bring which benefits and will prevent potentially which risks, it turns out to be across the multinational geographies, it works. Turns out that it's working. If there is no other question, with all that, I would kindly like to mirror that our learning is also from the industry, hands-on applications from the cultural perspective and the AI technologies-wise. In a nutshell, we will be using AI. We are using an AI. It will definitely make some role changes, but perhaps it's not end of the world. And as far as we know what we are using it for, and it is not like a must for all the organizations to use it. It is another tool in our toolbox. If we need to use that, if we know the clear purpose about it, we can definitely use it. And of course, we have been talking about its affordability, if it is affordable, but the human in safety becomes the culture, and the human becomes still continues to be the center of the entire context. And there will definitely be a lot of needs, like we have been talking about senses. As far as the AI technologies do not have those senses, maybe they can use cameras instead of eye and hearing, there was the microphone, the data, but the senses that the human senses, they will not replace it, and I hope that it doesn't happen in the very soon near, so that we can continue not robotized, but rather use it another technology and opportunity for that. With all that, I would like to thank the panelists and our guests and you all for your impressive attention, and it's really great for us to be all together as the safety professionals. With all that, thank you all very much for your time. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Stay still until
you.
they
Congratulations.
Təşəkkür edirik, minnətdarlığımızı bildiririk. Və ikinci panelimiz üçün də təltif etmə mərasimi həyata keçiriləcək. Çox hörmətli Orxan müəllimi səhnəyə dəvət etmək niyyətindəyik, əziz dostlar. Və bu panelimizin də moderator spikerlərinə məncə layiqli alqış ünvanlaya bilərik. Emin müəllim, xahiş edərdik. Qəbul edərsəniz. Mən isə nəzərinizə çatdırım ki, mükafatlandırmadan sonra bizim gözlənilən özəl bir proses keçən mükafatlandırma mərasimi olacaq. Daha ətraflı bir neçə saniyədən sonra məlumatı sizdən bölüşəcəyik. Və indi kollektiv şəkil çəkilsin. Minnətdarlığımızı bildiririk, bir daha alqışlarla təşəkkür edək. Hörmətli xanımlar və cənablar, gözlənilən ana biz gəlib çatmışıq və bildiyimiz kimi bugün bir avartsımız nəzərdə tutulub. HSC avartsı xüsusi olaraq bir daha haqqında bəhs olunması üçün nəzərimizi monitora yönləndirək və ətraflı bu avarts haqqında biz bütün fəaliyyət istiqamətlərini öyrənmiş olaq. Və üçüncü hissədəyik hal-hazırda. İndi bizim HSC Awards mükafatlandırma mərasiminə keçmədən öncə bu Awards ümumiyyətlə fəaliyyətin özündə əks etdirən video çarxımız var. Dəyərli dostlar, onu təqdim edəcək. Amma bir məqamı sizdən bölüşüm. Ümumiyyətlə, bir çox şirkətlər, bir çox menecerlər, rəhbərlər arzu edirlər ki, bu Awardsa sahib olsunlar. Bugün 5 nominasiya üzrə sizin qarşınızda olacaq və 2 ildir təsis olunub. Britaniya standartlarına əsaslanan, ümumiyyətlə, Britaniya Standartlaşdırma İnstitutu ilə birlikdə təsis olunan bizim mükafatlarımız bugün 5 nominasiya üzrə öz sahiblərini tapacaq. Yetəri qədər bu anı gözləyən dostlarımız var. Biz özümüzdə maraqla, mən son dəqiqələrə qədər mənə də demirdilər, sağ olsunlar. Maraqla gözləntidəyəm ki, görək kimlər olacaq və eyni emosiyaları paylaşan yetəri qədər bugün bu zalda dəyərli iştirakçılarımız var. Hətta belə bənzətməli desəm, ürək döyüntülərimizin səsi səhnəyə qədər gəlir. İlk nominasiyamız Trust Leadership Award olacaq.
mərkəzində bütün dəyərlərdən uca Fəaliyyətimizin mərkəzində bütün dəyərlərdən uca tutduğumuz yeganə meyar olan insan həyatı dayanır. Bu müqəddəs dəyəri qorumaq təkcə bugünümüzün deyil, həm də qurucusu olduğumuz aydın gələcəyin sarsılmaz təməlidir. Fəaliyyətimizin hər bir anına hopmuş təhlükəsizlik düşüncəsi və məsuliyyət hissi bizim dəyişməz fəlsəfəmizdir. Bizim üçün sənaye təhlükəsizliyi qanunvericiliyin tələblərini və texniki normativləri icra etməkdən ibarət olan formal bir proses deyil. Bu hər bir səthəm mütəxəssisinin şuurunda kök salan bir düşüncə tərzi, sağlam və ləyaqətli iş mühitinin yaradılmasına yönəlmiş bir strategiya və gələcək nəsillərə ötürəcəyimiz ən dəyərli mirasdır. HSE Awards ölkəmizdə sağlamlıq, əməyin təhlükəsizliyi və davamlı inkişaf sahəsində yeni üfüqlər açan, öz fəaliyyəti ilə örnək olan liderləri və qabaqcıl müəssisələri tanıtmaq məqsədini daşıyan mükafatlandırma platformasıdır. Bugün biz burada sənaye təhlükəsizliyi sahəsində zirvəni fəth edənləri, məsuliyyəti öz peşəkar kimliyinin ayrılmaz tərkib hissəsinə çevirənləri və fəaliyyətləri ilə gələcəyimiz üçün dayanıqlı bir zəmin yaradanları tanıtmaqdan qürur duyuruq. Daha təhlükəsiz və dayanıqlı gələcəyə doğru.
Mən xahiş edərdim nominatları öncədən alqışlayaq. HSE Awards ümumiyyətlə yetəri qədər öz çəkisi olan məqamlardan biridir. Biraz həyəcanlı anlar bəlkə də yaşanır, dostlar. İlk nominasiyamız, yenə deyirəm ki, Trust Leadership Award olacaq və adını açıqlayacağımız dəyərli işinin bilicisi. Varmı sizin təklifləriniz, düşüncəniz, fərziyyəniz? Sizcə bu nominasiya üzrə kim qalibdir? Başqa təklif olan, daha doğrusu düşüncəsi. Mən Azad müəllim adını eşitdim. Başqa? Kim? Zaur müəllim. Məndən sağ tərəfdəkilər daha dəqiq intuisiya sahibdirlər. Azad Əliyev ilk olaraq bizim Trust Leadership Awards-ın qalibidir, dostlar. Xahiş edərdik. Səhnəyə buyursun Azad müəllim və Orxan müəllim. Mükafatlandırma üçün sizi görmək çox xoş olardı.
Hörmətli təşkilatçılar, hörmətli dövlət qurumu nümayəndələri, dəyərli həmkarlar, hər birinizi bir daha salamlayıram. Bu xüsusi platformadan Sənaye Təhlükəsizliyi Zirvəsi konferansında bu mükafata layiq görülmək kifayət qədər böyük qürur hissi verir sizlərin qarşısında bu mükafatı qəbul etmək. Hər üç paneli ayrı-ayrılıqda bütün spikerləri diqqətlə dinlədim. Həqiqətən, əlbəttə ki, əvvəlki illərdəki panellərdə də bütün prosesin təşkilatçılığı yüksək səviyyədə təmin olunmuşdu. Bugünkü tədbir təşkilatçılığı da Orxan müəllim sizə və komandanıza xüsusi təşəkkür edirəm. Çox yüksək səviyyədə təşkil olunmuşdu və ilbəil müşahidələr onu göstərir ki, daha yüksək tələbat var. Bu tədbirdə iştirakla bağlı, ümumiyyətlə səthəm sahəsinin fəaliyyətində olan məqamlarla bağlı, biznes mühitində sətəmlə bağlı dəyişikliklər, o cümlədən hər bir platformada süni intellektlə bağlı olan məsələlərə xüsusilə toxunuldu və hər bir spikerin səsləndirdiyi fikirlərin içində bu məqamlar da yer aldı. Amma biz sətəm sahəsində liderlikdən danışan zaman burada təkcə proseslərə nəzarət etmək deyil, təkcə o prosesləri idarə etmək deyil, eyni zamanda bu emosional zəkanın bu liderlikdə tətbiqini nəzərə almalıyıq və mən hesab edirəm ki, burada həmin o mənəvi dəyərlərin, liderliyin formalaşdırılması üçün tələb olunan xüsusiyyətlərin hansısa bir süni platformada tətbiq olunması o qədər də gözlənilən deyil. Ona görə bu sahədə, sətəm sahəsində hər zaman düşünürəm ki, kifayət qədər inkişaf etmiş liderlərə ehtiyac olacaqdır, həm bu günümüzdə, həm gələcəkdə. Bu baxımdan bir daha təşəkkür edirəm hər birinizə. Orxan müəllim, çox sağ olun. Təşəkkür edirəm, minnətdaram. Sağ olun.
Və əlbəttə bu anlar əbədi yaşar olur fotoşəkillər və videolar vasitəsilə. Təşəkkürlər. Orxan müəllim, rica edirəm, siz səhnəni tərk etməyəsiniz. Birlikdə elə digər nominasiyaları, adlarını sadalayaq və qaliblərimizin adı açıqlansın. HSC Innovation Award hal-hazırda təqdim olunur. Bugün də yetəri qədər özünə məxsus aktivliklə seçilən söhbət Emin Dostiyari'dən gedir. Dostlar, alqışlarla səhnəyə dəvət edək. Coca-Cola, Evrasiya və Orta Şərq üzrə yetəri qədər uğurlara imza atan Emin Dostiyari.
Yaxşı, çünki məndə sözüm olacaq.
Çox zamanınızı almaq istəmirəm. İlk öncə təşkilatçılara təşəkkürümü bildirirəm və layiq gördükləri üçün təşkilatımızı qeyd etmək istəyirəm ki, mən bu avardı Eurasia and Middle East, Yaxın Şərq və Avrasiyadakı bütün HSC iş yoldaşlarımın adını alıram. Bu, onların hamısının bir yerdə əməyidir. Bizim AI innovasiya layihələrimiz Qazaxıstanda, Türkiyədə, Pakistanda, Yaxın Şərqdə, bizim çalışdığımız bu ölkələrdə icra olunubdur və mən bunu onların hamısının adını alıram, onları da təbrik edirəm. Təbii ki, detaylarını onlarla görüşəcəm. Təşəkkür edirəm hər birinizə zamanınıza görə. Sağ olun.
Emin bəy getdi. Get. Narahat olma. Bizim artıq Emin bəy ilə bir ilə yaxındır ki, bir dostluğumuz formalaşıb. Təbii ki, bu elə iş münasibəti ilə əmələ gəlmiş bir dostluqdur. Emin bəy hardasa 100-ə yaxın ölkədə auditlər həyata keçirdi, HSC auditlər və bütün işlərində də innovasiya tətbiq etməklə keçirib. Mən bəlkə də bunu necə deyim, mənim özüm məlumatım yoxdur. Axırıncı dəqiqəyə qədər Əliyə demişəm ki, qaliblər haqqında məni məlumatlandırmasın və heç bir halda seçimə təsir göstərmək istəməmişəm. Çünki keçən il biz bu seçimləri beynəlxalq səviyyədə etmişdik, bir neçə beynəlxalq şirkətin iştirakını etmişdik. Bu il isə daha çox yerli mütəxəssislərin iştirakını etdik və mən tamamilə bu məsələdən, seçim mərhələsindən uzaq qalmağı hədəflədim. Emini təbrik edirəm. Zaten burada ikinci paneldə apardığı moderasiyanı da öz bacarıqlarını göstərmiş oldu. Və biz eyni zamanda elə Safe Talks-u bərabər olaraq aparırıq. Məni də məşhur edir, sağ olsun, yavaş-yavaş. Safe Talks haqqında məlumatınız yoxdursa, QR kodları oxudaraq həm orada bugünə qədər həyata keçirmiş olduğumuz söhbətləri dinləyə bilərsiniz. Həm Spotify üzərindən, həm YouTube üzərindən, eyni zamanda dediyim kimi masanın üzərində olan QR-lardan izləyə bilərsiniz. Və bundan sonraki söhbətlərimizdə iştirak etmək üçün də bu qədər sətəm mütəxəssisi bir aradayıq. İştirak etmək istəyən olarsa, sevə-sevə qonağımız ola bilərsiniz. Mən ümid edirəm ki, hər bir sətəm mütəxəssisi ilə ayrı nöqtələrə, ayrı və fərqli və maraqlı söhbətlər həyata keçirdə biləcək. Təşəkkür edirəm bir daha, amma mən hələ buradayam.
Həmişə bizlə olun, Orxan müəllim, minnətdarıq. Həqiqətən elə indi səhnədə gördü, məndə olan siyahıdan sonraki bizim nominasiya üzrə qaliblərimiz kimlərdir? Növbəti nominasiyamız Workplace Wellbeing Award olacaq və bir daha baxmaq istəyirsiniz? Yox. Bu nominasiyada qalibimiz Rəşad Mirzəyevdir. Rəşad müəllimi alqışlayırıq və səhnəyə dəvət etmək istərdik. alqışlarla təbriklərimizi qəbul edin və Rəşad müəllim sizi dəvət edirik.
Salam aleykum. Adım Rəşad. Baker Hughes'da HC Manager vəzifəsində çalışıram. Çox şadam ki, Baker Hughes şirkəti belə bir tədbirə çağırılıb, dəvət olunub. Düzünü deyim, mən heç hazırlaşmırdım danışmağa, amma səthəm işçisi necə deyərlər, həmişə danışmağa hazırdır. Deməli, çox böyük qürur duyuram ki, bugünkü gündə Azərbaycanda belə bir yerli platforma, belə bir tədbir, bu səviyyədə tədbir keçirilir. Çox gözəldir. Birinci təəssüf odur ki, biz birinci ildir burada deməli iştirak edirik. İnanırıq ki, inşallah Orxan bəy gələcək illərdə Baker Hughes speaker pozisiyalarında burada oturacaq inşallah. İkinci təəssüf ki, AISA assosiasiyasıyla biz təzə başlamışıq işləməyə. Gərək çoxdan başlayardıq. Və bu bizim işimiz, bizim işimiz, yəni ki, təzə başlasa da siqnallar güclüdür. İnşallah bizim işimiz bundan da güclü olacaq. Bugünkü gündə bu, deməli, well-being iş yerində, deməli, sağlam rifah, deməli, avordunu almışıq. Baker Hughes şirkəti artıq bugünkü gündə 300-dən çox yerli işçi işləyir. Və mən demək istəyirəm ki, bir-iki addım, yəni ki, atmışıq bu məsələdə, Respublikada. 2 dəqiqə, yəni ki, çox danışmayacağım. Deməli, bu sağlam rifahdan danışanda, deməli, birincisi bu fiziki rifah gedir, fiziki sağlamlıq gedir. Yəni ki, idmana çox böyük fokus var. İdman, deməli, sahəsində artıq bizim çempionlarımız da var. Biz, deməli, idman zallarından, deməli, cooperation, yəni ki, birgə işləyirik. Bizim, deməli, Baker Hughes şirkətinin özündə də, yəni ki, idman zalı var. Yəni ki, idmanla məşğul olmaq, deməli, hər bir işçi vaxtı olanda, deməli, vaxt tapıb eləyir. Baku marafonda biz iştirak eləyirik. Hər il, artıq 5 ildir. Sizi də gözləyirik Orxan bəy qonaq kimi, yəni ki, bizim şirkətə gələ bilərsiniz hər zaman. Hiking, yəni ki, bu Azərbaycan deməli bölgələrinə biz deməli ziyarət edirik. Hiking, yəni ki, gəzinti eləyirik. Dağlarda Xızıdır, Naxçıvan bölgəsidir, Qarabağ bölgəsidir. Yəni ki, artıq Baker Hughes, yəni ki, bu tədbirlərdə iştirak eləyib. Sonra bu psixoloji rifah məsələsidir. Psixoloji rifah da ki, deməli, bu treninqlardır, hansı ki, bugünkü gündə Baker Hughes şirkətində mental first aiderlar deyirlər. Deməli, psixoloji ilkin yardımçılarımız var. Hansı ki, doğrudan da yəni ki, lazım olduqda hər bir sosial bir strukturda kiməsə bir psixoloji köməklik lazım olanda belə insanlar yəni ki, kömək göstərə bilər. Sosial isə doğrudan da çox maraqlıdır. LinkedIn-də görə bilərsiniz, yəni ki, Baker Hughes Azərbaycanda deməli, bu team buildinglar deyirlər, yəni ki, mən partilərdən danışmam, bu çoxdur, maşallah. Amma ki, tree planting, bu ağacların əkimidir, beach cleaning hər il, yəni ki, biz eləyirik bu dəniz qırağının təmizlənməsi. Yəni ki, bu bir komanda işləridir, hansı ki, bu well-being bugünkü gündə bu avordu bizə veriblər. Çox sağ olunuz. Orxan bəy, yenə sizə deyirəm ki, inşallah mən inanıram ki, gələn illər Baker Hughes öz yerini burada tutacaq. Bu speaker və bu pozisiyalarında. Çox sağ olunuz.
Rəşad müəllim, neçə nəfər əməkdaşınız var dediniz?
300-dən çox.
300-dən çox əməkdaşın, mən deyərdim ki, təkcə bu saymış olduğunuz aktivliklər həm onların iş fəaliyyətində, həm də ailə fəaliyyətində çox müsbət təsirini göstərir. Nümunə oldunuz, həqiqətən də müraciətinizdə də yəqin ki, mən bilmirəm artıq orada sizinlə bərabər eyni avarda kimlər müraciət edib. Amma seçilmə səbəbiniz münasibətilə bir daha təbrik edirəm.
Çox sağ olun.
Və ümid edirəm ki, bu formada nümunələriniz artıq olar, davamlı olar.
Bir daha Rəşad müəllimi alqışlarla təbrik edirik. Təşəkkür edirəm Rəşad müəllim. Orxan müəllim, bizim hal-hazırda son 2 nominasiyamız qalıb. Və nominasiya üzrə biz qaliblərimizin də adlarını açıqlayacağıq.
Deməli, hal-hazırda gedir Social Responsibility Champion Award və AC Excellence Project Award. İkisi qalıb. İndi hal-hazırda hansını açıqlayırıq?
Biz hal-hazırda
Social Responsibility.
Bəli, və şirkət olaraq sizin dilizləşmə daha gözəl olar. Çünki siz həmişə səmiyyəti ilə seçilən idarəçilərdənsiniz. Public Energy hal-hazırda qalibimizdir və mükafatı təqdim edirik. Vasif Əliyev. Vasif müəllim, sizin də.
Hər kəsi salamlayıram. Doğrudan da sürpriz oldu, heç gözləmirdik. Biz ölkədə bərk məişət tullantılarının yandırılması zavodu kimi tanınırıq. Bəzən Paprika Enerji deyəndə tanımırlar şirkəti. Fransız şirkətidir. Dünyanın 350-dən çox ölkəsində istehsalat sahəsi var. 16 mindən çox işçiləri var. Həqiqətən də mən deyərdim ki, bu zavodun ölkəmizdə tikilməsi 2011-ci ildə bu ekoloji problemlərin bir çoxunu yaxşılaşdırdı, imza atdı bu məsələdə. Əgər xatırlayırsınızsa, tüstülənirdi, tullantıları yandırırdılar, Balaxanada keçmək olmurdu. İndi mən deyərdim ki, hər kəs də onu hiss eləyir. Həqiqətən də bu ekoloji vəziyyət yaxşılaşıb. Təşəkkür edirəm. Sağ olun.
Təşəkkürlər və sonda, hörmətli dostlar, HSC Excellence Project Award hal-hazırda təqdim olunacaq sizə. Nəzərinizə təqdim olunacaq ki, qalibimiz kimdir? Daha doğrusu, şirkət olaraq şirkət adını çəkəcəyik və şirkət adından mükafatı əldə etmək üçün səhnəyə dəvət olunacaq. Dəyərli işinin bilicisini, işinin adamını sizdən tanış edəcəyik. Və yekun bizim qalibimiz bugün də yetəri qədər maraqlı simalardan biri Emil müəllimdir. Emil Alxaslı. SOKAR Downstream şirkəti olaraq biz Emil müəllimi dəvət edirik.
Orxan müəllim, təşkilat komitəsi, hörmətli həmkarlar, hər birinizə təşəkkür edirik. Biz Aslanın yarandığı ilk gündən birlikdə fəaliyyət göstərməyə çalışırıq və gördüyümüz layihələrin bir çoxlarında da hasta həmkarları ilə birlikdə icra edirik. Və bu təltiflə əlaqədar da sizlərin hər birinizə təşəkkür edirəm. Çox sağ olun.
HİSsə Awards olaraq biz bütün mükafata layiq görülən şirkət və dəyərli mükafatçıları təbrik edirik bir daha. Orxan müəllim, təşəkkürlər sizə, minnətdarıq və hörmətli xanımlar və cənablar, dəyərli tədbir iştirakçıları, biz Sənaye Təhlükəsizliyi Zirvəsi 2025 tədbirinin artıq sonuna gəlib çatdıq. İştirakınıza görə, dəstəyinizə görə hər birinizə təşəkkür. İnanırıq ki, növbəti tədbirə qədər yetəri qədər uğurlarımız olacaq Azərbaycan adına və növbəti görüşənə qədər bizim zirvəmizdə yalnız uğurlardan danışacağıq. Özümüzü alqışlayaq, sonda yekunlaşdıraq. Təşəkkürlər. Çox gözəl bir təklif var. Sonda bir ailə fotosu çəkilməsi üçün hər kəsi səhnəyə dəvət edirik. Buyurun.